Welcome again. We are back with part 3, genetics. Remember, this is a production of the Division of Education, Innovation and Energy e-learning program. I am Lenetta Cowie Clarke. So where are we right now? What have we done so far? We have done pedigree charts, codominance, incomplete dominance, and we did complete dominance in part 1. Be sure to look back at our previous lessons to make sure that you're up to date with all our lessons. So in today's class, we are going to be focusing on diagrams to show probability of the sex of offspring from genetic crosses. We're going to explain how sex-linked diseases are inherited. And finally, we are going to predict results of sex-linked crosses. Here is King Henry VIII with his 6 wives. Yes, 6 wives. Did he just love being married? No, not so much. He was more interested in finding a male heir to the throne. Only one of these wives died naturally. The rest, he either divorced or executed because they could not give him a natural male son to be heir to his throne. He was allegedly famous for saying these words, "Off with her head." Poor King Henry, if he knew what we know now, he would be saying something quite different. Okay, humans have 23 pairs of chromosomes. The first 22 pairs are called autosomes, and the 23rd pair is called, or are called, the sex chromosomes. So in humans, you will see 23 pairs. As I said, the first 22 are your autosomes, and your 23rd pair, you will notice, would either be homologous, like these, meaning that they're the same size, the same shape, or they can be like that, where one is significantly shorter than the other. The long chromosome is denoted an X, and the short one a Y. So in this case, we have 2 X chromosomes here, and we have 1 X and 1 Y chromosome. When you have 2 X chromosomes, the person is a female. When you have 1 X and 1 Y, the person is considered a male. Now, in terms of sex determination, this is how we work it out. Let us assume that we have a union between a man and a woman. So the woman has XX chromosomes because naturally she's a woman and she has 2 X chromosomes. The man is XY, so he has X and Y chromosomes. Now, just for knowledge, this is a symbol for female and this is a symbol for male. So the woman, her gametes can only contain X chromosomes. So we're using the Punnett square again, and we have put the female gametes here. So we have X and X because all her gametes would only have X chromosomes. For the man, however, because he has X chromosomes and Y chromosomes, some of his gametes would have X and some of his gametes would have Y chromosomes, or Y alleles, sorry. So when we cross them, Punnett square style again, we would have this combination of possibilities of offspring. So we have 2 sets of females and 2 sets of males. So every time a child is born, there's a 50% chance that the child could be a boy, and there's a 50% chance of the child being a girl, because we have 2 sets of girls and probability of having 2 sets of boys. So here we have a 1-to-1 ratio. 1 girl to one boy. Take note that if women were to have children on their own, they would only have female children. However, it is the man who contributes this Y gene or the Y chromosome to his son. So it is really the man who determines the sex of the children. So daddy would determine whether the child is a boy or a girl, because daddy has both X and Y chromosomes. So he can donate both X and Y to the offspring. Women can only donate X chromosomes. So it means that poor King Henry, if he had known that, then he wouldn't have executed his wives. He would have probably said, off with my head. So now we're going to go on to sex-linked diseases. Of course, you would remember that I just said that the X chromosome is much larger than the Y chromosome. So it means that there are segments of the X chromosome that will not have a homologous partner on the Y chromosome. So any genes which are found within this region here will not have a partner on the Y chromosome. So any genes that are here will be missing from the man's Y chromosome. And that is why they are called X-linked diseases. And here are some of the more popular examples of sex-linked diseases. So in an exam question, if they say or if they use any of these diseases, you would automatically know that this would be a sex-linked disease type question. So we have hemophilia. It's found somewhere in this region. Male pattern baldness, red-green color blindness, and Duchenne's dystrophy, which is a disease of the muscles. So these are all, and these are just a few of the sex-linked diseases, but these are some of the more popular ones. So they are found here. It means that a man can either have the disease or he doesn't. So let's explain how that happens. In the homozygous case, because it's a sex-linked disease, we have to use the sex chromosomes, X and Y. So here is a woman. She is X and X, and she has both chromosomes, both X chromosomes, and of course she can have whatever is the trait on both chromosomes. So we have capital A there. Or a woman, once again, with the X chromosomes can have a heterozygous state of capital A, common A. However, for a man, because this Y chromosome here is so much shorter, he is missing the partner or the pairing homologous side on his Y chromosome. So he can either be A, common A, or he can have capital A. So you'd write it like this: X, capital A, Y, because there is no homologous segment on the Y chromosome. Or he would be X, common A, Y. Once again, we don't write anything above the Y chromosome because that segment is missing from his chromosome. Okay. So here we have a pedigree chart of the royal family. Yes, the actual royal family, British royal family. So we are showing the inheritance of a particular disease, in this case hemophilia, throughout the British royal family dating back to the 1800s. Now they have been documenting this trait over several years. So we can now study them as an example of how hemophilia is passed on through sex-linked chromosomes. So we have here Queen Victoria, who got married to Prince Albert in the 1800s, and she had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 children. Those in the red have hemophilia, and those which are uncolored are normal. Then you're seeing this curious one here, where we have both red and white, and that would indicate your carriers. Okay, so we have, of her 9 children, she had 1 son who had hemophilia. However, she had 2 girls who were carriers of the disease. And just to point out, this follows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 generations here. Here we have Prince Charles, who we know is still alive today. His mother is Queen Elizabeth. Here she is with Prince Philip. And they have William and Harry, who we know are both married to Kate and Meghan. And they also have their children. So the pedigree chart can continue, of course, further down. But if you notice, we have no red spots coming here. And neither do we have any red areas on this side. It means that hemophilia seems to have been wiped out from this line going down, and possibly from this lineage here going forward. Only way hemophilia can come back here is if one of them marries a hemophiliac or marries a carrier of the disease. Okay, so let's look at an activity at this point in time. And of course, you are going to pause the video or take a screenshot, work on the answer, and we'll return in 1 minute to see if your answers are correct. In humans, hemophilia is a sex-linked condition, and normal blood clotting, capital H, is dominant to the condition of hemophilia, which we will give common H. A man with hemophilia marries a normal woman. What are the probabilities of them having children with hemophilia, and what would be their sexes? So we're going to do 2 things one time. We're going to do a sex determination, and we are also going to look at sex-linked transmittance of a disease. So remember that because the Y chromosome is so short, we do not have, or we do not write or denote any alleles on the Y chromosome because that segment there is missing. And please remember also that 2X is female and X and Y is male. So the parents' phenotype, we have a normal woman crossing with a hemophiliac man. Now, the question did not tell us that the woman is a carrier, meaning that she does not carry the recessive trait. So if she's normal and she's not a carrier, then it means that she's homozygous dominant. So it's capital H, and we must write it like this. Because it's a sex-linked disease, we need to put in the sex chromosomes. So you have capital X, capital H subscript, and X, capital H subscript here for the normal woman. And for the hemophiliac man, he is common H next to his X chromosome and Y. So let us look at the cross between this hemophiliac man and the normal woman. So we'll use the Punnett square here again, and we have put the male gametes to the right. Some of his gametes will contain common H alleles, and some will just contain the Y chromosome. So the X chromosome has common H, and the Y chromosome, of course, has nothing. And we are going to put the female gametes at the bottom, and she has only X capital H alleles. So the resulting crosses will be like this. And what we notice here, X and X, this is a female. X and Y, this is a male. XX, this is a female. And X and Y, this is a male. So once again, we are seeing that there's a 1-to-1 ratio of male to female. So 50% of their children could be male and 50% of them could be female. Also notice that this female here, even though she does not have the disease, she is a carrier of the trait. So she can pass down that recessive allele to her children. So we have one carrier female here, one normal male here, one carrier female there, and one normal male there. So the question asks, what is the chance of, or the probabilities of them having children with hemophilia? So there's a 0% chance of any children being born with hemophilia in this particular example. And what is the percent or the chance of the child being a girl? It's always 50%. Another example, a normal woman whose father had red-green color blindness marries a normal man. Determine the genotype of the woman and the man. Determine the possible genotypes of their children, and what percentage of males and female children would be colorblind, what percent will be normal, and what percent will be carriers. As usual, please pause the video, attempt the question on your own, and we'll be back in a minute. Okay, so welcome back. We are going to use the letters R for the dominant trait and common R for recessive. So persons who have homozygous recessive, they would have red-green color blindness. Now, in this question, they did not specifically tell you that this is a question of sex-linked disease. However, because you know that red-green color blindness is sex-linked, then you will approach the question appropriately. So the parent's genotype, the mother is normal, but her father had red-green color blindness. So if her father had red-green color blindness, it means that he would have passed on that recessive allele to her. So it means that she is a carrier. She has one dominant allele and one recessive allele from her father. And she marries a normal man. So this would be her genotype. Capital R, that she would have gotten from her mother, and the common R she would have gotten from her father because the father had the disease. And she marries a normal man. So this would be the result of the union between these two persons. So we have a female, male, female, and male. So let's look at the question. Determine the possible genotypes of their children. We have done that. What percent of males and female children would be color blind? So let's look at it. For a female to be colorblind, she has to be homozygous recessive. She must have both common R's in her genotype. So how many colorblind females? 0 colorblind females. How many colorblind males? The colorblind male must have that one recessive allele. And here we have 1. So we have 1 in 4 colorblind males is 25% of the males would be colorblind. What percentage would be normal? So we have normal female. Here is one normal female, and here is a carrier. So this normal female is 1 in 4, or 25% of the females would be normal. Carrier female, this is the only carrier female because here she is carrying the recessive trait. So we have 25% of the females, or 25% of the children would be carriers. In other words, 1 in 2 of the females will be carriers. So 50% of the females will be a carrier. And the final question asks, what percentage would be carriers? And we just answered that. So we have 2 females. 1 of the 2 females will be a carrier. So 1 of 2 females will be a carrier. So that means 50% of all the girls will carry the trait. So I've brought you back to the pedigree chart of the royal family, and I want you to notice something. All of the persons who have the disease are males. You hardly find a female having the disease. You have females who are carriers, but you don't have females who have the disease. And that is mostly because a female with the disease would have to come from both parents having the disease. And you hardly have a man with hemophilia surviving long enough to produce children. So in this example, we only have 1 hemophiliac male here who actually reproduced and had children. If you notice, none of the other males tend to have children because they, at least in the past, they didn't live long enough to have children. So for a woman to have hemophilia, she would have to get both recessive alleles from both parents. So both the father and the mother would have to have recessive alleles, and that is quite rare. So you will hardly find women with hemophilia. There are few, but it's really, really rare. You would mainly have men having hemophilia and the women being carriers of the trait. So that brings us to the end of part 3 of genetics. That brings us to the end of the series. We thank you so much for paying attention. As usual, we are going to leave you with some questions to work on your own. Please contact your local tutors or your local teachers for assistance with any questions that you cannot work out on your own. So what did we do today? We did sex linkages, we did sex determination, and in the past, in parts 2, we did incomplete and codominance, we did pedigree charts, we did Punnett squares, and in part 1, we did introduce the topic, and we did do complete dominance. Thank you once again. Stay tuned to other sections of biology which are just as exciting, just as interactive, and we wish you all the best in your exams.